Guys, welcome back to the Loadstar project. I'm gonna show you a little bit today of the mother load of parts I've come up with over the past week, and there's still a whole lot here that's missing that actually isn't ready yet. Won't be done until next week, but I'm gonna spend the next, it's Friday afternoon, I'm gonna put in a few hours here today, and then some more time on pretty much all day Saturday, and then Sunday I gotta go do some reloading with a buddy of mine up the road, but then in the afternoon I'll probably put a few hours into on the truck and get it ready so we can hopefully finally put this damn cab on next weekend. So without further ado, here is what I have. So my guys at the parts store really like me because between work and my projects I spend so much goddamn money there. But anyway, so we've got coolant lines, we've got upper radiator hose. The flex line is going to work awesome for that. The lower one, not so much. It's got some weird compound bends that are really tight, so I'm going to have to take these 90s and actually cut them down and then try to do this one-handed. But as you can see, 2 1/4 inch. Come on, I'm going to try to show you here. Let's see, hold on, bear with. 2 1/4 inch pipe, you know, coolant pipe. I can use aluminized exhaust tubing that is 2 1/8 ID, and it's like perfect fit, perfect. So we can cut these down, do some rigging, and got a piece of straight 2 1/4. We got all kinds of clamps. We've got some small clamps because we've got our heater hose over here. Not that we really need that just yet, but regardless, we've got it. I spent a whole lot of time at the international dealer this week trying to get this pinion seal. Finally, I think this is the right one. I actually bought the first one that they supposedly looked up. It took a long time because, as usual, you guys know how parts stores are these days. If they can't use the computer, it's like the end of the world, and they couldn't. They had to actually get the book out and find the diagram for this particular axle, this RA57 axle that's in this truck. And so anyway, needless to say, it took them a while, but I've got to finish getting this seal out. It is being, you know what, does not want to come out, but I'm getting movement. You can, you can't really see it. Yeah, I guess you can see that little gap between those two lines right there. That means we're moving, so we're close. Keep screwing around with that here. It'll be my first task, to be honest with you. Get that seal out, get the new one pressed in, and get this pinion sealed back up and the pinion yoke back on. So that's done. So it doesn't smell like frickin' gear oil in this barn anymore. So after that, here's the rest of our nonsense. We got a whole bunch of stainless bolts and screws. The screws are all to finish up my floor install. Got my last piece of transition strip here to make that happen. And cab mount bolt. We got this sweet, thanks to Amazon, which I hate buying from Amazon, but like everybody, I hate it and I love it at the same time. So anyway, got a whole bunch of insulated clamps for air lines, wiring, coolant lines, you name it. Got some assortment of cotter pins because I love these boxes of, you know, assortment stuff. Got boxes like that for crush washers and grease zerks and you know, hairpins and you name it. They're awesome to have sitting around. Summit Racing was kind enough to get me this. Got some 6AN fittings on it. Just a simple tube and fin cooler. I'll show you how I'm gonna do this. So we get some extra light over here. Unfortunately, it's exactly the wrong length, but we're gonna figure it out. You can see here on my fuel tank straps, if I put one end on the strap where I can bolt it in, the other end is shy. So we're gonna have to make ourselves a little bracket for one end. So not a big deal. Got steel sitting around. We can figure something out. So that's gonna mount right here. I'll leave it sitting there. So basically, I mean, up neatly, obviously, but it's gonna sit just like that, and it'll be kind of tucked underneath the cab overhang above the fuel tank step there, be a little bit out of the way, but It'll give me, I've got some 4-foot lines being made to go from my oil ports right there on the side of the block, and they'll loop up here, give me some nice room to loop around and come back there, and get some good oil cooling capacity there. So that's that. Then the bulk of the mass quantity of money I spent was airlines. So we've got our 4 drop lines that go from, you guys already saw the quick release valves that I had previous, that I already bought. So now we've got our drop lines that come off of the quick release valves down to the air brake chambers. Those are in 3/8 fitting by 3/8 hose ID. Then we've got 1/2 inch that are going to be my drops from the frame rail down to those quick release valves, which are mounted to the axle. So we're bumping up basically, so we're feeding with 1/2 inch, and then once we divert out of the valve going 2 directions, we'll drop down to 3/8. This was different. The truck fed via 3/8 the whole way previous to this, so I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Then from there, we're going to use modern 1/2 inch nylon. It's just easier, it's cheaper. Push connect fittings are obviously a lot simpler. I did black, so it just looks a little more period correct versus the modern colored, but so hence we've got a whole bunch of push connect fittings. Well, those aren't push connect, those are just female couplers, but regardless, we've got our tank drain valves. We have some check valves, which these were not in the system prior. I'm going to plug them in because from a safety standpoint, I like the idea of having a couple check valves in the system, so those tanks between my primary and secondary tanks are isolated. And then over here, we've got some, came off of the Bendix website originally, but we've got a nice diagram of a simple straight truck air system so that I can plumb this properly. From what I can tell, prior, this Fleetstar was, it's old, it's a 71. It looks like it was plumbed where the compressor feed line went into a series of valves first before it hit the tanks. I'm going to plumb it like this diagram, and basically every truck I've ever seen is plumbed, where it feeds, the compressor feeds directly to a supply tank. Supply tank then feeds the primary and secondary tanks. From there, we have our feeds going up to the treadle valves and the brake valves and accessories and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to do it the modern way that I think is the right way. So I'm trying to get started on this stuff today and tomorrow being Saturday, because I know that I'm going to reuse some of these old fittings. I've got piles and piles of old fittings. I'm going to reuse as much of that as I can, but I know there's going to be fittings I need. So I've got a hardware store up the road that carries all kind, old school, hardware store where people actually know what they're talking about, and they've got all kinds of brass fittings. So I'll probably plumb as far as I can go, get a list of fittings so I can run up there while they're open, and get what I need. So that's the plan. We'll do some coolant lines at some point too. My parts guy got me this Tektran book too, so if I need to order additional stuff, I've got all sorts of, be it wiring, valves, you name it. So that could come in real handy, to be honest with you. Last thing, I still do have to figure out how in the hell I'm going to mount this tank. So actually, that'll probably be job 1 after, I don't know. Let's just see what I come up with, and I'll update you guys a little later. So with that, I'm going to get going on my pinion seal, and we'll see where this takes us. Okay guys, we got this seal out. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I had to gnarl it up pretty good, but I am gonna guess this was the original. So this is a exactly 50-year-old seal at this point. So but anyway, I had to chisel a little bit. You can see right there I put a tiny little nick into the, it's not through or anything, but so anyway, I tapped it back in and sanded it, and I think we'll be okay. So we got that all cleaned up, but ready for the new seal. And as you can see, the seal fit perfect, so big thank you to CNS Motors, the Loadstar dealer in Flint, Michigan. Got it all looked up and figured out. Looks a little different, but she fits nice and snug, perfect. Got them dried out, right ID, so we're ready to put this thing back together and be leak free. Okay, so here we go. We've got all of our drop lines and quick release valves, and then the feed lines on the frame rail where we're going to switch to nylon. So I ended up clocking, so I caged these back out and clocked both air brake chambers. I did, apparently, I don't know if I screwed up or my parts guy screwed up, but these hoses for the driver's side were the right length, but they were the wrong thread. They were I guess it would be they were not 3/8, so I guess they would have been down to quarter thread. Regardless though, the old lines were quarter thread, so I had some adapters and I ended up using 90s up top. So we had everything we needed, made it work. So got this driver's side all bracketed up there. Some of those fancy Amazon clamps. Everything's clocked, and see if I can back up. Well, if I turn the camera you can see it, but anyway, they're routed nice and clean. I'm not going to put the clamps on this end yet because I need to be able to work this to do the push to connect fitting. I've already got all tightened down there, but yes, we will secure that too, obviously. So I'm going to switch gears now and head up and try to figure out these damn air tanks so that I know what kind of hardware I've got to get or whatever at the hardware store tomorrow, and then once I know where they're going, then I can start to route lines and figure out fittings. I wanted you guys to see this. I was going to start to clean this tank up to prep it for paint, and I found that, which appears to be a self-tapping screw. We'll get this thing out, and we're going to weld it, because I don't want a self-tapping screw in my air tank. And that is how you should repair a hole in a tank. Or maybe I'll be told that it's illegal to weld a tank. It's not like this is going to be DOT inspected, so if it is in fact illegal, I'm not too worried about this one. Okay, so this is midway through this video update, but Saturday night, so I worked yesterday and good most of today actually. I didn't get out here for a little while, spent some time with family in the morning, but so I want to show you what I got done and what I'm going to get done tomorrow. I decided this was the location where I was going to mount the primary, or the supply air tank, I guess if you will. So I've got the hard copper line, the original from the Loadstar, installed, going down the frame rail, and then it's kind of gnarly looking, ignore that. But anyway, it drops down to the back side of that tank. Then we've got our, I can't see it, but we've got our, way down there, we've got our tank drain. Here's where I installed the pop-off valve, 150 PSI pop-off valve that was used back from the Loadstar. This line here goes up some crazy adapting right there, and it is adapted to the airline feed for the transmission. Then you see right there, we've got our push to connect, and fat hand in the way, but that line comes up, and that is our nylon feed to our primary and secondary tanks. So here's what I did there. Got a T, more push connect fittings, more 1/2-inch line feeding down around to those tanks. So I'll go over here and show you what we did here. So coming in, both loop under the frame rail. So coming down here to the main, to my primary tank, we've got, again, tank drain valve down there. I just have it plugged up here because there's no room for a fitting next to the battery box. And then this is our out to the, that's the feed for the service brakes going up to the firewall. That loops around here, follows around the motor, and as of right now, it's just labeled and blank, ready for the cab to go on. Into the other tank, oh, I guess I should point out, I've got my check valves. I put check valves on both the supply, or I'm sorry, check valves on the primary and secondary tanks. So if there was a failure some point downstream, we wouldn't lose pressure to the main supply tank or the, the opposite tank, whichever one failed. So Coming into the secondary tank, we've also got the same thing to push to connect with nylon hose, a check valve. This is the only thing that's not really plumbed yet. That is my out for my air horns. I'm gonna adapt that down to some small diameter nylon. I've got all my measurements and fitting sizes, so I'll get that this week. Then I've got an air chuck fitting for whatever, always nice to have. And this is also, I did it intentionally on the secondary tank, which is my parking brake tank. So that way if whatever had to get towed ever, we could easily just supply air to that circuit and get brakes to release, and it would be isolated just to that parking brake circuit. So, and then last, it's just the out coming out of there, loops up and links with the, you know, that's my parking brake supply. That links up with the service brake supply, and again up to the firewall. I did run out of hose. I didn't have enough to run both lines going back to the rear axle for service and parking brake, so I ran the service brake line, and I gotta get about 15 more feet of that hose so that I can run the park brake line. But really, that is about all that's left. You know, that and that air horn. Got the cab all buttoned up, so figured out where everything's at. We've got our, I used a union to make sure that this hose could connect properly down to the governor on the compressor. Reuse that line. It's kind of cracked, but I'm going to deal with it for the time being. It's an easy one to replace down the line. I could easily switch that out to a push to connect type line or something. So anyway, got some plugs in where I had some ports that I no longer needed to use. Got the air lines inside the cab all connected and hooked up, so to my parking brake valve. So I've got then my lines coming out for supply, both supply and feed back to the axle. I was short a couple push to connect fittings in the union here, so that's on my list to get this week. And then same thing, I'm missing some fittings to some push to connects and bushing for there, but that's my service brake, you know, supply and feed. This line here, this one here. So I got everything labeled off, ready to go. So I am really happy that that air system is done, and I am really happy that I did not wait until the cab got on, because it would have been a nightmare. So, so get this tank slid back in, this fuel tank slid back in, and oh, and I mounted my cooler, my oil cooler. Got that all set, ready to go. Ready for those lines to get done. It should be hopefully next week sometime. I also did upper and lower radiator hoses. Can't see much of the lower, but it's there. Not too cobbled together, so that's all set. At any rate, we got a lot done, and still have tomorrow. My goal for tomorrow, by the time I get done plowing snow in the morning and going doing some reloading, I'll probably only have, you know, I don't know, 2-3 hours, maybe, yeah, probably 2 or 3 hours at best. I'm hoping to get this floor buttoned up. That's not much work at all. It's probably, you know, 45 minutes worth of work to get that done. So if I can get the floor buttoned up inside the cab, well, shoot, that might really be about it. I've kind of done most of my other odds and ends, you know, through the day today, and sitting good. So we'll get that done, and then I think we're still on track next weekend to get the cab put on. I've got to get some more fittings for my splitter airlines. I didn't have the right stuff, you know. I got odds and ends left to do, but we're in the home stretch. And again, I think I'm going to wait on painting that other door, I think, until the cab's on. But at any rate, we're close, so see you here shortly. Okay, so last update of the weekend. Turns out my buddy and I reloaded for like almost 6 hours, so I didn't get as much time in on the International as I wanted, but I was able to get the floor done. So last little bit of the weekend progress. We're still in good shape to mount the cab next weekend. I haven't had a chance to mess with that U-joint yet. That's really the last thing on the list, other than the last little tiny buttoning up of airlines. But obviously I've got, you know, 2.5 days next weekend, so plenty of time that we can still do the cab lift. So I'll show you what I got going on here on the floor. So it's not perfect. Nothing on this truck is perfect, but it turned out pretty good. So I've got the original OEM sill plates there. And then I just use that transition strip like I talked about. And then some of the old, what do you want to call it, door edge guard stuff around the dog house there worked out pretty good. My cuts weren't perfect, but anyway, it worked pretty good. So got some seams in there, but they covered up pretty nice and neat. And got all my fancy stainless hardware in there now, so everything looks nice. Got some nice panhead stainless screws for the dump control lever. And yeah, a little bit of my blood where I had an incident with a impact driver. You can see, yeah, looks like a Phillips head, doesn't it? Because it is. It felt really good. So, anyway, you know, again, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect truck, but I'm happy with it. I'm happier with it than I would have been with rubber floor. That would have been really, really expensive. And, you know, all in, this cost me like less than $50. I mean, all right, if you count the fake wood floor that I already had, throw in another, you know, whatever, 40 bucks or whatever that was worth. So regardless, less than $100 for a nice looking floor, I can deal with it. Most of the crevices are sealed up, not all, but you know, this truck isn't going to see a whole lot of dirt. If this was going to be a work truck, it probably wouldn't work out real well, but it's not. Take a vacuum to it every now and then, and I think it'll look pretty good. So the last thing I was going to attempt to do today was mount my fan on the dash. There's some holes already there from a tachometer that was on the dash, but you know, this thing it's spent the last like 4 years on a dump truck, and chrome's kind of messed up. It swivels. See, can't see, but it swivels way too easy. It's just not. I don't think these things are very expensive, so I think I'm just gonna order a new one because I like the look of it, and it's also, I think, going to need it in a non-AC truck with a non-sliding rear window. So I'm going to get online right now and see if I can find me some odds and ends for the truck, and that would be on the list. So with that, thanks for watching, guys. I'm doing my best at keeping everybody updated, all, you know, whatever 6 of you that are paying attention to this build, but it's fun. It's getting pretty exciting. We're down to the cool stuff, reassembly, and where it starts to look really awesome. So we'll see you next time.